Hi, everybody, and welcome to the show, The Strange Reality with Dave Emmons. And every show I have either people that have been experiencers, investigators, or they've studied it academically, or whatever. But I got a combination guy today, and he's a boots on the ground type of guy, and that's the type of person I like. They go out and get the information. They don't take it, from other sources. They just go out and look for it, and that's great. And on the strange reality, I like that in a person, and experiencers that tell their stories wholeheartedly. That's great too. We have a combination of people who do things, and I think investigations, science, and also the mechanics of abductions and experiencers all ties together, and we can come up with something. We can come up with our own disclosure. We don't have to wait for the government to fiddle faddle around in their committees. Uh, my guest today, I've known this guy for about 5 years, and we've done, I guess, several shows together. And he's got a new book out, and he's getting some attention from some TV people, and he's been there before. And his name is Jeff Woolwine. He's from the great state of Arizona, and I love Arizona. I was just there, Jeff, in September, end of
Oh,
September. Went through Sedona, went to the Grand Canyon. Had my wife with me. We drove around through there. That's the week I put 5,500 miles on my car.
oh wow.
Yeah, I drove through 23 states. I had a couple experiences, in which was weird in Montana and Wyoming, and I've got a video out on that. But Jeff Woolwine is a renowned UFO hunter whose work has captured the attention of audiences worldwide. He has been featured in numerous news reports and television shows, including the UFO Hunter Show on the History Channel, A&E's The Truth Is Out There, and True TV, among others. His influence extends internationally, and his research and findings have been showcased in various countries. His contributions to television, Woolwine played a pivotal role in the creation of the UFO Hunter Show and Ancient Aliens. His research and insights were instrumental during the pilots of these shows, particularly his work on the Phoenix Lights. I remember that. We talked about that, which inspired the development of the Ancient Aliens. His expertise was highlighted in the UFO Hunter Show episode titled Arizona Lights, where he shared groundbreaking discoveries, the Phoenix Lights and historical connections. We're going to get into that. Jeff Woolwine, thank you for being on the show, buddy. And
Thank you so much for having me back. I
yeah,
appreciate it.
well, I was going to have you back earlier. I don't know what goes on. I get the guests, and then the holidays popped up.
Right.
And of course, I made a scheduling mistake with you, and I apologize on the air for that. It was a 22nd, and I guess what happened is I didn't get my notes together, and my notes and my calendar had two different dates on it, and so, well, I'm sorry. That stuff happens, I guess, sometimes, but that's why I needed to get you back here to make up for what that happened. But
Oh, that's okay. No
uh,
worries.
brother, I appreciate you being on the show. Jeff Woolwine, tell us a little bit about what's going on in your life right now.
Well, so we're out here in Tucson, Arizona, and for 2 years in a row now, I've been tracking what I call the Tucson Lights, that has made its way around Tucson within that full year, has made a cycle around Tucson for a year now, and now they're back in the original spot where they started uh, in January of last year of this time, and they're right back uh, in the same position. And these things are here every night. And I really believe it's because of the solar storms that we've been having, major solar storms for the past year or so now, is the major cause to why not only here in Tucson, but sightings all over the world.
Could you tell us, Jeff, what are they? Are they orbs? Are they actual craft that you can make out the shape and size of them, Jeff?
Well, when I was researching the Phoenix Lights, I believe that these are the same entities, the same lights as the Phoenix Lights. It's during my 15 years of research on the Phoenix Lights, I was with repeated sightings and getting close look at these things. I was convinced that these wasn't crafts at all, that these were living entities, living creatures. If we see five lights out there, we're looking at five living beings. And so I'm not really into, the crafts per se because of what the Native Americans are talking about, because I successfully matched the Native American petroglyphs carved on
Yeah.
the mountains around Phoenix to these lights and the other things that are flying around Phoenix.
Right.
And it's just not talking, it's not depicting crafts or little green guys, if you will. It was depicting something else, something that was alive in the sky. And I believe that's what we're looking at today, is the same exact things as what the Hohokam people were seeing over 1,000 years ago and recorded their sightings on the mountains here.
Yeah. Could you equate? I know you probably heard of the all the drones that were flying on the East Coast a year ago, and they still have some and a few that they see. And there's actually plasmoids. There was pictures and videos of plasmoids. Can you associate those beings that you're talking about to the plasmoids that they saw on the East Coast a year ago, Jeff?
So I'm not really familiar with that term. I don't know if it's the same thing, but I have looked into that case, and it's, of course, it's right over a fault line, and so yeah, that this is the reasons why these things visit these certain areas around the Earth is because of the natural energy that the Earth is creating, such as fault lines, and so yeah, there's a lot of energy fault line associated in that area, and then in combination with the solar storms. So yeah, I'm familiar with the cover up drone story, and that's really easy to pass off to the public. But
Hmm.
I wasn't there. I haven't seen what they're talking about, so I can't really say. I have seen some videos that the news has leaked. Some of them are flare, or some of them are drones, and you can tell that they're drones because they're blinking in a pattern. But then some of these lights isn't, and that's the stuff that we want to look at, is the non-blinking lights. And I believe, yeah, it's the same stuff.
Yeah. Jeff, I know that you have a new book out, and but I'm going to finish up on the Phoenix Lights. Has there been a craft the size of the Lights come back to Arizona, Jeff, that you've seen since then?
Well, studying this phenomenon and studying what really happened March 13th, 1997, we have to go where evidence, right, is taking us. Hearsay is great, but we need evidence. And what do we have as far as March 13th, 1997, is lights in an arc shape formation on the west side of South Mountain, between South Mountain and the Australia Mountain. And they simply didn't fly over the city. They were just arcing there, absorbing the energy. And, and we only have four videos of this, and possibly five. And why? Why do we have some of the videos that we do today that actually proved what happened? Is because there were sky watchers out that was filming the exact same lights nights prior to March 13th, 1997. So
Right.
they were out there ready to capture something on film, and they did, and they got what everyone is seeing now, is that famous video. And so my point is, if anything flying over the city going, 7 miles an hour, a mile wide V-shaped craft, going over these guys would have got it, okay, because they were there on
Right.
the roofs waiting for something to happen. And when I was doing the History Channel, Arizona Lights, they admitted that no evidence of a craft going over Phoenix is made available. As a matter of fact, I just did the Proof Was Out There on the History Channel about 3 weeks ago, and they admitted also that the Phoenix Lights is a type of misnomer, so, which is kind of uh, isn't really what everyone is talking about. Really, what really happened
Hmm.
isn't really what everyone is talking about. It's a misnomer, and so yeah. I mean, the truth is finally coming out. It's been over 20 years. We're still having questions of this alleged craft and that no one can prove. And the petroglyphs doesn't talk about crafts either. They talk about living creatures, living entities. The Hohokam Indians saw the exact same lights that we were seeing today. And they carved their testimonies on the rocks there. And I'm sorry, I've been up and down South Mountain and all the mountains around Phoenix, Arizona. I can't find one evidence of anything of a spaceship or a craft, but I do find is living entities. The archaeologist likes to call them anthropomorphs because they're shape shifting in the sky.
Right.
And I, in my 15 years of study of these things, and field work of this stuff, uh, this is something different, and I believe that we're different. We're dealing with many different types of things here. So we have the orbs, and then we have other things here that are different from the orbs. This is where the anthropomorphs come in, the shapeshifters,
Mm-hmm.
and so we have different type of creatures, entities, if you will, that in my opinion, they're not from outer space, but they're from inner space, and that they've always been here. Just as the oceanographers has found new species of life below the ocean, this is another species of life that I believe has always been here among us. The Native Americans talk about this. They go up on the mountains to talk to their spirits, and basically, this is what it's leading up to is these holy mountains and the source to where to find these beings and right back to science, the fault lines, the energy.
Yeah, I know that the committee, the congressional committee, a couple of people, like uh, I guess was Representative Luna and Comer, they've come out with a few remarks. They're saying that the whistleblowers are saying that these are ETs, but they think they're interdimensional beings, and you're kind of saying that too. And they're probably from here. And they also said there's bases underwater. Has the Air Force ever come up with any any good answers about this? That's right over the mountains there, Jeff.
They're not going to come out and talk about this. I mean, because the history of these things isn't a very good history. This is one of the reasons why we have this cover up of this new life form. I mean, it's new to us, but it's not new in history. I mean, this is part of our history. This is part of the world's history. Is that these things are here. This is a new animal, if you will, a new creature, and that has the capabilities of flight. And the Native Americans say that they're going down into the underworld, but on a scientific analysis, actually going into that fault line for the energy. I
Mm-hmm.
believe that these mountains is their homes. This is where they reside at. This is where they reside at, and I don't believe that they die. I believe that they're forever. Okay, um, um, and there's a lot of different interpretations, a lot of different outlooks on this, and you know, I I've seen some things in the sky that could resemble a craft. I've seen a black triangle. Actually, I've heard it also, and you hardly ever hear any reports of this, but I was on South Mountain and this black triangle flew into this cloud and disappeared. But when it did, it screamed and it echoed off the canyons. It echoed off the canyon walls of the mountain. It was loud, and that's something I've never heard before. I looked up, there's this black triangle disappeared in the clouds. Was that a craft? Possibly. I've seen other things in the sky that could resemble a craft. Am I saying crafts isn't real? No, I'm saying it's very possible. But I think what the majority of the public has seen, as far as orbs and lights and other strange things that we see in the sky, is not craft, is not a technology, but it's another creature, another living entity. And you
And
know what? Because of all these solar storms, and everyone now is seeing them around the world, not just
yeah.
here in Phoenix or Tucson, everywhere now, so they can't deny it.
Hmm.
First it was flares, now and then it was balloons, and now it's drones, right? So they got to come out and say something.
Yeah.
All right. And even Russia and China, all right, are seeing these things too, right? And so what better way to put a little bird, a little thing in our enemies' ears by coming out and trying to tell the public, oh, we have crafts, we have technology of this, right? And to make our enemies think that we have better technology than they do, right? Because they're not saying anything about that, but we are. We're coming out and say, yeah, we've got this recovered
Yeah.
crafts and we got all this technology, come mess with us now because we got ET
Yeah.
technology, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Big
not
psyop.
really, it's not meant for our benefit. All this, disclaimer and all this stuff we're seeing, it's not meant for us. It's meant for our enemies, all right? It's meant for other people to think that we have this type of technology. And so that's just my opinion on it.
Yeah, the big giant triangle, a TR3B, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
one of ours. I'm pretty sure they have that, and they also have weapons that we don't know about. They use in
Mm-hmm.
Venezuela, and Netanyahu and Trump both said we have weapons and technology that we've never exposed to the public, and we could use it when we need it. And I think they used it in Venezuela, and
Yeah.
that's a weapon that they is a sonic weapon. I guess that
Right.
disorients people, and
Right. And
soldiers. Yeah,
that's not ET related,
yeah.
So that's man made right there.
You don't think it's
So
back
yeah.
engineered? You don't think it's
No.
back engineered? No.
No.
Okay.
Uh-uh.
All right. Let's. Okay. Okay. Now, yeah, I know you talked about the Phoenix Lights, but now you got another book, and I'm interested in getting into a couple of topics in the book. I'll show the picture of it, and let's see. I can get the whole shot in there. Maybe I don't know. There we go. I usually put it on my documents and slide it, but this will show the book. And this is the book that's selling pretty good now, and we'd like to try to get people interested in your book. And I'm really proud of you the way you try to enlighten people, and you get
Thank
on
you.
these TV shows and radio, and you do all this, and you're kind of like an archaeologist, except you're not a certified archaeologist, but you're what would you call yourself one time, an amateur archaeologist? Or,
Amateur archaeologist, sure.
yeah, yeah. So now, and you got into that, and then you read these hieroglyphs about from the Indians, and that was fascinating to hear that. Now, this book, you said that I've been in Tucson. I went up on that one mountain that you drive up on. What's it called? Uh,
Uh, well, we have Mount Lemon out here.
yeah, yeah. I drove up on
Yeah.
that, and I looked over, and I didn't see anything. It was during the daytime, about noon, so I know I wasn't going to see too many bright objects. But I went up there. It's beautiful up there. It's really nice.
Yes.
Nice parking
Yes.
areas. And I guess you go up there at night and maybe take your camera up there and maybe catch, or does the city lights kind of blow things up a little bit, Jeff?
Well, we have some observatories out here. So this mountain here behind me, this is part of Tucson, and so they have different types of names for these different mountains. So this
Right.
one here um, is called now the name slips my mind now. Can you believe it? Yeah, so we have this one here, and then we have another mountain, and then we have Mount Lemon. So actually, Mount Lemon is behind these mountains here,
Okay.
and so we're actually seeing these lights over this mountain, and there's an observatory up there also. So and they're trying to keep the city lights to a minimum because of the observatory,
Yeah.
and so I live by this mountain.
Okay.
And so I don't need to go up on the mountain. And you know what? I've tried, but you can't really get a good vantage point because there's tons of trees. And so what we want to look for, we want to see past this mountain and look over the mountain because they're actually coming and going from behind Mount Lemon to the canyons there.
Yeah, I see you differentiated this book from the Phoenix Lights. You said how I tracked UFOs around Tucson, the
Right.
Tucson Lights. What makes the Phoenix Lights and the Tucson Lights any different, Jeff?
Oh, it's the same stuff. It's the
Same
same
stuff.
lights, right? Yeah. So there's nothing, you know, different about this. It's the same stuff, same entities, and so yeah.
Now, tell us about your TV shows that you've been on. I guess the last one you said, what, 3 weeks ago?
Well,
And
we actually filmed that 3 years ago,
oh yeah,
and they just now aired it. So
okay.
yeah, so the proof is out there in History Channel. They're about 3 years, and I've had other people who have done interviews, not with that channel, but in paranormal channels, and they were, they said they did their interview 3 years ago too, and they're just now airing it. So, they're really backed up, and but they will get these shows out there.
Well, they should
Yeah,
catch up a little bit. Uh,
I know.
but you've had you talk about the 1,000-year-old rock carvings, mountains surrounding Phoenix. The Hohokam Indians depict UFO sightings. But here's something interesting I saw, in your book synopsis, and this could this be part of the entities you're talking about, the jellyfish sightings?
Hmm.
Jeff,
Hmm.
could you tell us a little bit about the jellyfish? We've seen videos on internet with these things. It's got lines or something hanging down from it, and they're
Hmm.
floating. Are these entities inside of those mechanical things, or what are they, Jeff?
So when you see something like that, that is the creature. That's the living being. That is the UFO, if you will. That is the UAP. This is what um, you know I discovered in 2005 while investigating the Phoenix Lights. And so let's go back a little bit. So in 2004, the Phoenix Lights are here on the west side of South Mountain,
Hmm.
and they're over this power plant. The power plant's burrowed down into the fall line of South Mountain. This is what's drawing these things to this area, to this certain area, is this power plant. Well, we did about 4 or 5 news reports that summer, and the end result was we're all seeing flares 150 miles away in Tucson, Arizona. So I was like, no, these things are here by the mountain. Let's go to the mountain and see if we can get some day stuff, and just to explore the mountain and see what all is there. So in the beginning of 2005, I moved to South Mountain about a mile away on the east side. And it didn't take very long. I saw this black object come down out of the sky and just ascend on the mountain there. And, it was great. I saw it, I got it on film. And the next day, because I'm thinking spaceships, technology, so there's got to be evidence of this thing landed out there because I saw it and I filmed it. I went out there the next day, and what do I find? I find a boulder with carvings of a stick figure man looking up at the exact same orb that I filmed the day before, with spirals on both ends of this petroglyph panel of the boulder.
Mm.
Now, if we go a little about 7 to 8 months prior to this, I remember seeing a Native American who worked at the Pueblo Indian Art Museum in downtown Phoenix, and he was up on South Mountain. He's talking about the petroglyphs, and he was like a type of shaman or medicine man, if you
Right.
will. And one of the people that he was with turned around and says, "Hey, that stick figure man looks like he's looking up at something above his head." Dave quickly turned around and said, "Yes, that's part of our interpretations here, is that our ancestors saw and recorded things in the sky for future generations." Well, I saw that and I'm like, wait a minute. We have strange lights in the sky. Now I have strange markings out here on the mountains. There's got to be a connection. So once I saw that petroglyph, it automatically triggered, Dave over there at the Pueblo Indian Art Museum. So I called him up. I didn't really tell him what I was doing, what I was up to. I just said, hey, I saw you on Channel 8 talking about the petroglyphs. Can we go up there and talk about the petroglyphs? So we went up there and we spent about 3 hours up there, and he's talking about some really, really crazy, interesting things. And at the time, I'm still thinking technology, spaceships,
Hmm.
crafts, right? And so, and when he got down to the spirals, he's talking about, this is important. He says when the spirals are carved clockwise, it's a doorway in, and when a spiral is carved counterclockwise, it's a doorway out. He says when the spiral it goes down some 9 times out of 10, it's hitting that crack in the stone. He says that crack is pointing to that crack. That crack is the emergence point to the underworld. He says when the spiral ends up, he says there's a door or a vortex in the sky. I said, a vortex? He goes, yeah, it's like looking down into a tunnel. That spiral represents looking down into a tunnel, um, into another dimension, if you will. And, through the whole time we're up there talking about the glyphs, he's not talking spaceships. He's talking spirits of the earth and sky. He's talking about shapeshifters, anthropomorphs, things like that. And, so that just triggered something. I'm like, hey, this is the exact same thing that I'm filming in the sky now. And this is why I call my research petroglyphs in the sky, is because it's petroglyphs in the sky. What are carved on the rocks is prehistoric photographs of thousands of years ago of UFO sightings, without a shadow of a doubt. Up until then, we think the Native Americans are talking about UFOs. We think this, but now, without a shadow of a doubt, this is what it's talking about. These mountains with spirals and anthropomorphs are prehistoric UFO sightings. Now, there are some mountains out there that do depict hunting and gathering and ceremonies and conchinas. Okay. But the mountains that we are looking at, we are concentrating at, are the ones with spirals and the shape shifting anthropomorphs. That is where the source is to where to see these entities at. Are these mountains with these spirals carved on it?
Okay, you talked about they must have had some interaction with these beings,
Oh,
Jeff, a
absolutely.
thousand years ago, the Hohokam tribe. And are there interactions with modern day humans with these entities, Jeff?
So when I studied this situation, I'm going out there and for like this whole year, I'm finding altars of sacrificing. I mean, the stuff that we find in Mexico, as far as the Mayan pyramids and things like that, I'm finding here on South Mountain. I'm finding evidence of tombs. I'm finding evidence of giants. I'm finding a lot of evidence that the archaeologist isn't talking about. You know, and so for a whole year, I'm finding all this evidence, and it's just not going with what the archaeologists are trying to tell us. So I decided to go to the Phoenix Library. What does the Phoenix Library have to say about South Mountain? So I went up on the fourth floor to the government department and had to give them my ID. And they came out with this folder on South Mountain, 1967 and older or something like that. And lo and behold, I open it up, and who's staring back at me but the first park ranger, Charles Holbrook, from the early 1930s to the late 1940s. And what he's talking about is what he learned from the Native Americans on who the Hohokam people were and what's buried on South Mountain and what happened to the Hohokam people, because we don't know what happened to these people. We're here for 1,000 years, and all of a sudden they just disappeared with no trace. Archaeologists wants us to believe, well, they simply migrated somewhere else because of drought. Well, where did they go? There's no evidence on where they went. They were here for 1,000 years. They were masters of the canal systems of water. And then they just simply disappeared. Not only this tribe here, but all the tribes around the world disappeared at the same time. And so the Native Americans, they trusted Charles, and they told him what happened. And he writes in his journals, he says, from what he learned, is when the Hohokams first got here, they migrated from Mexico. And it's only natural, it's only obvious that they would, because back then Arizona was a part of Mexico, so why not bring this type of religion, if you will, to these mountains here? So they migrated to this area here, and I strongly believe that they were guided by the Phoenix Lights, much like I was guided to South Mountain by the Phoenix Lights. The Phoenix Lights actually showed me where to look. I followed them to this mountain. And I believe this is how the Hohokams arrived here in the Valley of the Sun to South Mountain. And back then, it wasn't called South Mountain. It was called Mount Sapoa, Mountain of Mercy. And he writes in his journals that all the tribes from all nations used to gather in this Valley of the Sun. And what did they do? They were watching what we call now the Phoenix Lights. They were watching their gods, if you will, in the sky. And so he goes on to write, he says, when the Hohokams first arrived here, they didn't have to live. All right. And it wasn't a desert at that time. It was a tropical like landscape. All right. Nothing was dried up and dead. All right. And we find evidence from the waterfalls down the mountains and the weathering of the rocks. There was a lot of water in this desert. So it wasn't like this when the Hohokams were here. And when they got here, they didn't know how to live. So legends say that the spirit of the earth and sky came down and they taught these people how to live. And
So,
in
Jeff,
Go ahead.
do you equate these, I guess, these entities that you're talking about? Are they close to ETs? And what are their appearance? Do they morph into human-like entities, like shape-shifting, Jeff?
So there is, talk and there are depictions of these entities, and that's what, that's what Dave was talking about. He's saying that they try to look like everyone else. They're mimicking man, and that's what these things like to do. They like to mimic, like animals and deers and
Right, right.
serpents and snakes and things like that. And so they were mimicking mankind. So, are they extraterrestrial ETs? No, I believe that they're interterrestrial. Like I said before, that this is their home. Also, this is their world, and and so things were going good for 1,000 years, right? So gold was being brought here and melted down into statues and whatever else they did with the gold, and things were fine for 1,000 years as other tribes of nations used to gather here at the Valley of the Sun to watch these lights in the sky and these other entities that were visiting this mountain, and sacrificing was going on. And then from one day, from for reasons unknown, the sacrificing stopped. And when that did, that's when things started to dry up. That's when the waterfall stopped. That's when the food shortage was happening and no more water through the canals. Everything was drying up. And Charles Holbrook goes on to write in his journals. He says that the people were yelling at their elders. Why did you stop the sacrifice? Yelling at their tribal leaders. You made the gods upset with us. Why did you stop the sacrifice? Look, there's no food. There's no water. We haven't seen the entities. We haven't seen our gods. We haven't seen our spirits. We haven't seen our Phoenix lights in months. What, you stopped the sacrifice? Why? Charles Holbrook goes on to write in his journals that out of the east came these things, and they started picking people up into the sky and carrying them off. But there were survivors to this, and they were afraid, and they ran in these caves of South Mountain. They saw what was going on, and when it was all over with, most of the tribe was vanished, was gone.
Oh, like
And
The Hopi tribe, I guess, was one of those tribes that you're talking about that disappeared and they were taken
well,
away. Is
um,
that
no, I don't. I believe the Hopis came afterwards,
okay?
and so yeah, the Hohokams, is so the Pimas consider themselves ancestors to the Hohokams. Matter of fact, the Pimas are the ones who named the Hohokams. And what does Hohokam mean? The people who disappeared, the people who got taken away, because we don't know what happened to these people. And so the Pimas consider themselves ancestors to the Hohokam. And then some Hopi tribes do talk about them being ancestors to the Hohokam also. But when I actually do my studies, I think the tribe of the Tohono O'odham tribe is more inclined to the Hohokam than any other tribe. But I could be wrong. And another thing too, I really think that the Hohokam was the Mayans. Okay, that's
Yeah,
why,
probably so.
that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking the
Yeah.
Hohokam was the Mayans, because like I said, I find Mayan art on South Mountain, and I find the feathered serpent. We find the pyramid in Mexico with the flying serpent, and I found the exact same type of replica on South Mountain. All right, where the Hohokam people made this huge serpent, in front of this pyramid hill, right? And
Mhm.
today, people are walking up this pyramid hill having no clue on what they're walking on. That right there is a buried pyramid, right? And there's things buried in it. And so the tribes that survived this, they knew not to live in this valley again. If they said that if they're going to continue to live in the Valley of the Sun, which is now called Phoenix, then they would eventually have to go back to war with these spirits of the earth and sky. And so what did they do? They piled all their gold up, and Charles Holbrook writes in his journals, he says the gold was as tall as a saguaro cactus and as round as the sun. And they buried all this gold in South Mountain because they knew one day that the Mayans would return someday to have everything start over again to reclaim the gold. And there are some legends out there that say the Phoenix Lights is guarding the gold and guarding the precious things that's buried in the mountain there. That's one story. And so they vowed never to return to this valley. And it was a dust. It was dried up. It was dead for over 400 years. There were tribes on the outskirts of this valley, and they saw the lights, they saw the flying serpents, and they saw the orbs in the sky, and they were afraid because they knew what happened to their ancestors. They knew if they're going to deal with these creatures again, these entities, these false gods, if you will, then they knew that they were going to have to go back to war with these things. And I find it very interesting that the petroglyphs on South Mountain does depict this, and I talk about it in my book, and I show pictures of this. And another fascinating point is there's a panel on South Mountain that depicts a type of war that went on between mankind and these creatures in the sky. There's depictions of the Hohokam Indians shooting bows and arrows up at these flying snakes in the sky. So yeah, it's all coming together here.
Now, you've been all over that mountain in archaeology and looking up things. I saw some shows where guys were out looking for the gold, the Mayan gold, and nobody's ever found it. So it's probably deep inside that mountain somehow or another. And we talk about, I know you're not associating the Hohokam tribe with the Hopi, but didn't the Hopi say something about the ant people helped them?
Oh yeah. Oh sure.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's many different stories, and the Native Americans say that we're like in the fourth and fifth, and we're getting ready to enter the sixth or whatever that is. But each different time, the world changes, and every time these beings are here to help mankind start over, right? And that's one of the legends. We have the turtle legends where the flood was here, and the giant turtle said, "Hey, come jump on my back, I'll save you." And then when the water subsided, the turtle dropped these people off, and that's where the turtle clan came from. And then when we're coming to the ant people, the ants are like, "Hey," because apparently it was a fire on the earth. And the ant people said, "Come down, live with us. We'll help you. We'll save you. Come live with us." And what happened with that is the humans ate all their food, and when things were okay, the humans left. And to this day, when we look on the ants today, they have a skinny waist, and this is because of the humans eating all their food. And if you really look at some of these ant piles, we see the ants bringing up little crystals, bringing up offerings. All right, bringing offerings up to to man. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Jeff, your picture is frozen, your video is frozen, but we hear you very well, and that's why I'm, just keep going with this because you can talk through it. I don't know if you can straighten out your video, but our weather here in Illinois it's going to be about 5 degrees, maybe -2 tonight, and we got about 8-9 inches of snow on the ground. And so it's been kind of hectic here with the weather. So no wonder the Wi-Fi may be acting up. I'm not sure if that's on my side or your side, Jeff.
No, everything is clear here. Am I still frozen?
Yeah, you're still frozen. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
On my side, I hear the voice, and also I see that I'm still live in the video. Yeah.
Okay.
But if you stay frozen, you can go ahead and talk. We can do this like
Okay.
we can do this like a radio video type thing, When they took these Indian tribes, Native American Indians, I should say, where did they take them, Jeff? When these beings took them?
That's we have no idea. We have no idea, and but when we read some of these ancient texts, it tells us that at the end, that we'll be caught up to be judged. And it was this what happened to the Hohokam? Were they caught up? Were they raptured? All right, to be judged. I mean,
Hmm.
what happened? So it's the same stuff, not only here in Arizona, but all around the world at the same time. And it was part of this world changing.
Yeah. So if they took them somewhere, they're going to bring them back. Is that what you're also saying, Jeff?
Well, I don't know. That's that's something I haven't really considered. I haven't looked into bringing them back. I would say no, but some of the legends do say the Mayans are supposed to return. That's why they buried the gold
Right.
on South Mountain. So it's possible. This is one of the reasons why, yeah, I found tombs up there. I found stuff up there, that the archaeologist isn't talking about. But this is one of the reasons why South Mountain is a government park. Okay, so you can't go up there and start digging stuff up, right? So why did you want to protect this mountain so bad? Why not protect white tanks? Why not protect the superstition? Why not protect, a mountain? What's so special about South Mountain? Well, that's mountain. That's the Mount Sapoa. That's Mountain of Mercy. Okay, so there's gold and other precious things in that mountain that if we actually did start digging things up, it would totally rewrite history. And that's what my goal is today, is to bring the true history of Phoenix out through my 15 years of research, or not only amateur archaeology, but research on South Mountain and seeing these things for myself in the sky, matching them to the rock art. This is never done before. And in 2005, so I was doing the news in 2004, talking about the Phoenix Lights. Now I'm seeing day stuff and I'm matching it to the rock art. All right. So the news is eating that up. And, back then, I don't believe there was any UFO shows, no history, no ancient aliens, no UFO hunter show. None of that stuff was on
Right.
was on
Hmm.
air. And Pat Uskert in 2005 was in town. He was working for UFO magazine. And I believe he saw me on the news, and he contacted me for a new show idea called UFO Road Trip. And he asked me if I'd like to be a part of this pilot. And I was like, sure, that'd be great, And I actually did a 7-page article in 2005 in UFO magazine talking about my discoveries. And I showed him some stuff. I showed him this new type of UFO, and he was amazed at it. And I showed him the connections to the rock art, you know. And so later on, that pilot that we did, that he did with others also, turned out to be the UFO Hunter Show, and that aired on the History Channel. And then in 2007, the crew, the actual show, came out in 2007 to do an episode called Arizona Lights. They asked me if I would like to be a part of it and talk about the petroglyph connections to the Phoenix Lights. And I said, yeah, I'd love to. So we went up on the mountain, talk about the rock art. But Pat was telling me, dude, you're filming some bizarre stuff. You're talking about things that the public isn't ready for yet. You know, and so it kind of frustrated me, because I was like, you know what, the public better get ready, because this is what's here. It's not balloons, it's not drones, all right, it's not government stuff, it's not crafts. These things are alive. And I kept saying that, and they saw this. And they saw the shape shifting, flying serpents. I took a lot of that stuff to the news, and a lot of that stuff made the news. My spider that flew by the window there, thing was crazy.
Hmm.
That made video of the day. So there was a lot of evidence here that we're not talking about crafts. We're talking about living creatures, living entities, but they wouldn't let me present that to the public. So I had to wait over 20 years now. All right. And then now, the government's coming out and start talking about jellyfish and all these things. And who lo and behold contacts me after all these years? Pat Uskert. He's like, dude, I said, yeah, wasn't I talking about that in 2005?
Yeah,
He's like, yeah.
you're back, bro. Your video's
Okay.
back. Okay, good. I got you back. But I wanted to ask you about the jellyfish. Now, when I saw the jellyfish on these internet videos, I saw some mechanical things along with it. That things were hanging down, but it looked like there was some metal or something with it.
Hmm.
Could you explain to me what that's all about, Jeff?
Oh man, that's deep. And this is the reason why all this stuff was covered up. right? And the next cover-up story, first it was, what was it? Flares and then balloons and
Right.
drones, right? And I believe the next cover story, and we're seeing it now, is crafts and technology. Okay. And because we understand that, we understand technology, we understand spaceships and little green men from other planets and blah, blah, blah. We can handle that. We understand that and we can cope with that. But when it comes to something different, that actually absorbs itself into the mountain, to absorb energy, that shape shifts, that's able to fly and evolve, just like seems to just disappear into the mountains. We're talking something supernatural here. We're talking something completely different than what we've been led to believe all these years. Spaceships and aliens and crafts. This is different. This and the history of this, when we're just talking about it, taking people up into the sky, and how did they do it?
Yeah.
We got petroglyphs up there that some would interpret to look like balloons. All right, it's an orb with this line coming down. Oh,
Yeah.
but why is the whole carving balloons? Over 1,000 years when balloons wasn't available that, back then. Why are they carving balloons? Well, because it wasn't a balloon. It was this orb, right? And this line came down and not only picking up animals and things like that, but humans, right? So when we see this type of what called jellyfish now, we see these long
Right.
things. That's scary stuff, dude. Okay, I'm not
Really?
gonna lie to you. Yeah, man,
They're
that's
like they're
that's
like they're like tentacles, huh?
yeah. And back then when I first discovered it, we called them tadpoles, but now everyone's thinking, oh, jellyfish, whatever. It's the same stuff, same creatures, same supernatural, shape-shifting, living being, right? That
Hmm.
has the power to know who's watching, who's not watching. This is how they're getting away with being in our skies without trying to be detectable. You can't pick them up on radar, because there's nothing to reflect off of, so we can't catch them on radar, so
Hmm.
it's pretty much undetectable. But I believe, watching what's going on here, and yes, there is somebody else watching this. I picked them up in 2004. Let me give you a situation here. I'm out there watching the Phoenix Lights in 2004. These lights would come in, hover over that power plant, right? But what else was there? Airplanes, little white airplanes, and they'd zoom after these lights. And soon as these airplanes got within a mile radius of these lights, the lights would disappear. Airplanes would come in and circle right over that power plant where the lights were. Airplanes leave, go up in circle, lights would come right back. It was a whole cat and mouse game the whole summer of 2004. Well, after I'm making the news, those airplanes are following me now. Those airplanes are circling my apartment and watching me go all the
Yeah.
way to my location to set up my camera to film these lights. Now I moved to South Mountain. I'm catching day stuff now, right? And these things are coming off the mountain, flying over my window. All right, I'm making the news then. Not only am I seeing white airplanes, black helicopters too. And
Oh.
these black helicopters were flying around. They'd monitor what's going on out there. This serpent, this flying black and red serpent came out of South Mountain one morning, went up to the mountain, climbed 1,000 feet, went over my apartment, sat there. I filmed it. All right. And, I was the only one that saw that. But after that made the news, about 3 or 4 days later, a black helicopter comes in and he stops right there at the top of that canyon. Right. And now I was the only, how did he know? I was the only one that saw that. But how did he know where that thing came out of? All right. And because by then, I'm watching a few different, I call them doors. I'm watching a few different doors. I'm watching that door. I'm watching that door. I'm watching this door. Just because this is where they're coming and going from. So I'm cataloging. I'm documenting all where these doors are. And this helicopter went to all these doors that I was watching, and then went to some other doors on the mountain that I didn't know of. So, oh, thanks, helicopter. I'll watch over there too. And he went right back to that place 3 times, and then he circled and pointed right at my apartment.
Wow.
And of course, I'm filming. I'm documenting. All of this is on my YouTube channel. I'm filming this black helicopter. Right. Sometimes they come swooping after me over my apartment window. I'm waiting for the bus. Sometimes they swoop down on me. Right. I'm up on South Mountain. There they are. They're watching me. And some people, oh, the Men in Black, invaded
Yeah,
my
that's.
apartment and took all my stuff. No, no, that
Yeah,
doesn't
I thought I was
happen.
going to say men in black in a black helicopter. I
Right.
was I was going to say I'd love to live in that area. It's nice there. I know that I've driven through there, and it's really nice in that area. But I don't think I'd want the black helicopter. I've had helicopters come over me sometimes. Anybody that talks about this stuff or even gets close to the government being involved, you're going to be followed or you're going to be
Yeah.
looked at. Yeah, it
Yeah.
happens all
It
the time.
it it doesn't bother me. Like I said, they're not harassing me. They're just simply they're they're watching who's watching the watchers.
Yeah,
Okay, if
right.
we put it that way, they're seeing how close I get. See how far I'm getting. And more important, they're seeing if I'm going to get taken up yet. Because once that happens, that's when everything is going to hit the fan. So they're seeing how close I get. And see what kind of. I've been doing this for 25 years, man.
Hmm.
And what I started doing this is because I've been seeing them as a kid. That's
Yeah,
the reason why I got into this, is
me
because I'm
too.
seeing lights over the house. I'm seeing orbs. I'm seeing all this stuff. So, dude, when you're an adult and you're still seeing them everywhere you're going, you got to find out what's up. You're not reading other people's books and not here talking about hearsay. You're on a mission. You're on a
Yeah.
quest to find out what is going on, not to get famous, not to sell money and books, just to get your own answers, man. And that's what I did. So I went into this thinking spaceships, technology, going down the same path everyone else is, and then the evidence is taking me down a completely different road. And that's when I did a 180. I totally changed my mind about these
Mhm.
things, man. Whoa,
Yeah.
what is this? You know what I'm
And
saying?
people should know that we don't get rich. I've written 4 books.
Oh yeah.
You don't get rich off of UFO and ET books because there's a limited audience. Speaking of books, and let's talk about this. Hour is going by real quick. I want you to tell us why you wrote this. How I tracked UFOs in Tucson and Tucson Lights. Could you sum it up from the first chapter to the end, just real quickly,
Oh
Jeff?
wow.
Oh no,
Uh,
I know that's a big bag to unpack. I'm sorry, buddy. Just tell us some high points then.
Oh, no worries. And my clock, we got a half an hour. So and the reasons why I'm on this time limit is because I can't control when these things are here, and so
Hmm.
we've had cloudy skies for like 3 nights now, and now it's perfectly clear sky out there. So and these things are here between like 6:30, 7 o'clock. So I want to get out there and start filming them, and so that's why we're under this little time zone.
Okay.
But let me tell you what happened. So we're here in Tucson. I'm overlooking the mountain, and oh, Catalinas. That's what this mountain is called. So we have the Catalinas,
Okay.
and then we have Mount Lemmon behind it. Then we have a middle mountain in the middle. But this mountain here, this is the Catalinas, and so I'm up on my apartment, right, and I'm always looking at the mountains. I know what to look for because all of my experiences in Phoenix. So I'm here in Tucson just to see what's going on. Every once in a while, we'd see this orb fly over the apartment and go on the mountain, or maybe one would leave the mountain. But nothing on the mass scale every night on what's happening now. And so what happened? So in May of 2024, what's so significant about May? Well, we had a solar storm. We had this major solar storm, and so much that we were able to see the northern lights, the aurora lights, here in Arizona. And the only way to do that was to take a photograph of north, which would be the Catalina Mountains, the North Mountains, and to see the colors in the photograph. And so this was like at midnight. And so my wife is out there taking pictures. We're up on the second story balcony and we're taking pictures. And we're looking back and seeing the pretty colors, the orange and purples, or the pink and purple. But I'm seeing little specks in there, little white specks. I'm like, what are these little white specks? And so I bring out my night vision, and lo and behold, I'm just at awe what I'm seeing. I'm seeing these white orbs flying over the mountain, getting brighter in certain areas, and some are going down on the mountain, and some are leaving the mountain. And this went on for an hour, and I must have got like 50 to 60 of them, just in that whole hour, just visiting this mountain. And I'm like, wow, what the heck, man? That was incredible, you know? But I was right in the transition of moving. So, and I really wasn't expecting to see that many of them the night before. So I'm right in the middle of moving. And so after I filmed that and I posted it, I pack up my stuff, my equipment, and then it takes me about a month or so to get reset up and located in my new apartment. And it just so happens to be, so I was like on the west side of, the Catalina, but now I moved more to the middle of the Catalina, still overlooking the mountains from west to east, and then I can see the East Mountains, the Recon Mountains, you know. So I'm in a perfect position. And so we're sitting out of the balcony, and I see this light just appear above the sky, disappear. I'm like, no way. And this was right in front. So they moved, right? So I get my camera out, and boom, they're right in front of us now. So they moved. They moved from the west, and now they're in the middle. A month has passed, and they migrated east from west to east, and they're over here at the in the middle of the mountain there. And so coming in at the same time and the same hour, and they're there for an hour, but they were migrating from west to east, and then when they would stop at the east, you know, the next month they would pick up, all right, but an hour later, right, and this continued through the whole rest of the year. So by December, they're clear out of town, coming in at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and every night I documented them every night, and they were here for an hour, and they were from west to east. Every once in a while, one would crisscross, you know, but the migration was west to east. All right. And so when I looked into this, what's the reason? Why are they going west east? We know because of the fault line. We know they're there because of the fault line, because of the energy. There's power plants, you know, that's on the outskirts of all these mountains, bored into the fault line to turn on the lights, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we know that's a major energy spot, energy source, you know, because of we put power plants in, just like South Mountain. So the power, but why are they going from west to east? Well, just so happens that that's the rotation of the Earth. So not only are they there, so what kicked it off was that solar storm that brought them here, right? Boom, they're here. But now there's no more solar storms, right? Major ones. So what they have to feed off of something. So they're not only feeding off the energy from the fault line, but also from the energy of the rotation of the Earth around the sun, west to east. And energy fluctuates with each hour and each month,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So
Yeah.
that's the whole idea. That's the reason why they're going from west to east at different times of the month at different hours, right? Because they're following the rotation of the earth, absorbing that energy.
Yeah, they're absorbing free energy in which we don't even know anything about. So they,
Exactly.
so Jeff,
Exactly.
they know a lot more than we do. Uh,
Right.
Now, when it comes to like your book, I know you just I don't know when you got done with this, but when did you finish this book? How
Oh
I
man.
track
So,
UFOs.
oh wow. So that whole year, right? That's
Hmm.
when I that's when that the first book came out, that first year,
Yeah.
2004. And then so I'm thinking it's the same type of pattern that I had in Phoenix. All right. So in Phoenix in 2004, I'm filming the lights, right? And then in 2005, the lights are gone now. They're not over the power plant anymore. Now I'm seeing anthropomorphs. I'm seeing the shapeshifter daytimes, right? So I'm thinking it's the same pattern, right? So by January of 2025 here in Tucson, I'm looking for the jellyfish. I'm looking for these living creatures, you know. So I'm out there. I'm out there early in the morning. I'm out there in the evening. I live right here by the mountains on my balcony, so I can see the open skies. I'm not seeing none of that, right? But what happened was in January, they came back on the east side of the mountain here, right? In 2025.
Yeah.
And then what did they do? So instead of going out of the city, they migrated from north over to the east side to the Recon Mountains, right? So January and then February that the Recon, March they're over there on the west end of Tucson at the Tucson Mountains. March, April, May, June or excuse me, May, when we cycled through May again, boom, we had another solar storm. Holy cow! Wow,
No.
massive ones, right? And it's just setting them right there on the west side. And then solar storm, solar storm, solar storm. We had these major solar storms, and it really depended on where the solar storm was happening at on the solar disk on the sun. So I'm watching where the solar storm is on the sun, right? It's on the west end of the sun, and
Right.
these things are on the west side of Tucson, right? I'm like, wow, okay, no more solar storms migrating, catching back up to the rotation of the Earth. And so that's basically what had happened. In my book, I explain this. We can predict where these things are going to be at, from the solar storms, and also, from my book that I documented all these for these 2 years now. And man, it was just an incredible journey. Every night, I'm still filming them out
Yeah.
here.
how about
I'm still watching them.
how about other eyewitnesses that live
Oh
around you?
man,
Do they see things too, Jeff?
absolutely, absolutely. I've done there's we have the Tucson MUFON out here, and I've done a lot of Tucson MUFON shows, and I'm probably going to do another one this year on the Tucson Lights. And so yeah, and plus, I'm hitting social media, the groups in Tucson, and so they want to see it also. So I found a good spot. And so the whole last year, man, I'm taking people up to see these lights, and they'd be flying over their heads, flying right above us, flying right in front of us. It was incredible. It was great every night. And in the book, man, I'm saying, hey, this is the new normal. This is they're not going away. These things are here. And of course, we have the airplane activity, and they're monitoring, right? And I talk about that in the book also. And so um, I think it was October, November of last year. I can't remember, but I had the opportunity to talk about the Tucson Lights in California, in Joshua Tree, California. And when I was there, my friend, he has this type of store, this antique store, and we were going there. We had dinner at his house, and we're going to his store, and it was about 9 o'clock at night. And lo and behold, I see this light flying right at us, this pier, another light flying right at, dude, pull over, pull over. I'm calling him, dude, pull over. We pull over, and sure enough, the lights at 9 o'clock, the same time the lights would be here in Tucson, are there at that mountain too. So that just confirmed that
Yeah.
it's not only happening here, but it's happening in other places around the world too.
Yeah, maybe they're following you, Jeff.
Oh
I
well,
I know in Montana I saw a sphere, and then I saw the same sphere in Idaho, in the mountains there,
right.
and it was following me, kind of like just tracking me, and they do
So
that. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, so they have, and I believe they've been watching certain people over the years. But I don't like to call myself like this magnet or nothing. People say, "Oh, you're a magnet. Oh, they're following you." Well, I just know where to look. Okay, I know what I'm looking for now. I've got plenty of
I
research and
yeah.
experience. I know where they're at. I know the mountains. I know the petroglyph. I understand the rock art. And once you crack the petroglyph code, boom, it's all downhill. You know when these things are going to be here. You know the time. You know what to look for. They tell you. It's all the answers are carved in stone up there, like sacred skulls.
And I think the government knows also, Jeff, because back in the 50s when Eisenhower made a deal with them, supposedly, we don't know for sure, but he made a deal with them that they can trade some technology. He wouldn't stop his nuclear weapons because our enemies had nuclear weapons. So he said, well, we'll exchange some technology, and you could examine our people, like abductions, and make tests on them to see how things are going for us. That's what they're interested in, how our growth is in our DNA. But they said it. He said, don't hurt anybody, and everybody that you contact or abduct, we want them on our list. The government needs to know who you examined. So that's strange that the government would know everything that happens between ETs and humans, and maybe that's why you're tracked sometimes, Jeff.
Well, I have no idea. I mean, then again, there's no evidence. So
Yeah,
we have to go, my research is done with evidence, what we
I
can
know.
prove, and so that's all good and gravy, but we can't prove it yet,
Yeah,
so
they're
I
just
mean,
they're theories. Yeah, they still haven't
yeah,
proven this Eisenhower meeting really, but
this
yeah,
is proven.
yeah.
And
You
this
got
is why I made this book, is
yeah.
because it's not about fortune and fame, Dr. Jones. It's about getting the information out and informing the people what's happening here, because it's happening every night. This is a part of our history. All right. And the people that's watching these things too, these airplanes, they're not saying nothing. So somebody needs to come out and say, look, dude, there's things going on in our skies that's not normal. And more people need to see this. And
Hmm.
that's what I do. If I had I give my books out. I buy them and I give people. I give free books out all the time. I bet Amazon, makes people pay, because of the printing costs and stuff.
Right.
But if it was up to me, I give the stuff out for free, because it's not here. They're not here for us to exploit. They're not here for us to get money and fudge and fortune and fame off of, and feed a bunch of people a bunch of nonsense, dudes. They can't back up. It's credible stuff. All right. And I teach people in the book how to see them. And you don't have to be here in Tucson. The information that's in the book, you can use the same information and teachings in your city too, if those things are there in your town also.
Yeah, it would be nice to get our expenses back, though, right, Jeff? From books.
Well,
I, let's
money is not really a thing with me,
yeah,
so it's about getting the information out. That's what it is. That's what it's all
enlightening
about.
people, and that's what I
Right.
like about you. But
Getting more people out there to see it.
yeah, consciousness.
That's what I get paid at, is
Yeah,
the expressions, and they're coming at them. It's funny too. These lights, they start heading right toward us. Look at them. They're coming after you now, dude. They're coming after you. And he's sitting there just staring and staring.
yeah. Let's close by getting your opinion of everything that you've researched. 25 years into this, your research and everything, and tell us your opinion about disclosure and why we're having so many games being played on us, Jeff. Could you tell us a little bit about your insight into that? You rub elbows with people with Ancient Aliens and History Channel and TV channels, so you must be hearing something from these people also, Jeff, about disclosure.
Well, what we see on the news and things like that, and this, disclosure. Like I said before, it's not meant for our benefit. It's meant for our enemies. I don't believe that these people who's watching them, whether it's Homeland Security, or Men in Black, I don't know who these people are, but they're not. They're never going to come clean. Right? That's just my opinion, because of the history of these things. Because the history is not a good history. So if they were here to help us, here to stop wars and here to cure cancer, and they'd be all over it, but they're not. They're hush hush. They're not saying anything about this.
Right.
And more is coming. More is here. More every
Yeah.
year. More is coming. We're getting invaded here, and so to not cause panic. They're feeding people, spaceships, technology, because we understand that we can cope. And they're not talking about the history, not saying, oh, these things have been here before and this and that, and oh, they're not saying that, oh, something's visited us, but some of them, I mean, it went from UFO to UAP,
Right.
unidentified aerial phenomenon. Well,
Hmm.
they're getting closer,
Yeah.
right? They're not saying crafts no more. They're not saying UFOs or
Smoke screens.
spaceships.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yes.
like, hey, you're getting closer to the truth here. But yeah, so all this stuff that we're seeing now, it's not for our benefit. It's just a circus, and it's just misinformation for our enemies to think that we have technology to persuade other countries, making the United States on top and things like this. And so that's my opinion. And they will never come out and say, even when these things land on the White House lawn, they can say, "Oh, we don't know what's happening."
Yeah.
Bull
So
crap, bull crap. You
Hollywood,
do,
Hollywood
yeah,
set. Yeah, that's what they'll
yeah.
say. Okay, you are working, and you keep working at this, and you keep looking into the history. You put your boots on the ground. Uh, what is your ultimate goal? Do you really want to make contact with these beings, Jeff?
My last interview I did with somebody that asked me, "Well, if there's thousands up there in the sky, would you greet them?" No, I'm out of town, dude. I'm taking off. I'm gone. And that's what I'm doing. I'm monitoring what's going on here. I'm monitoring the world situation because that has a lot to do with it
Yeah.
also, because of the wars and things that's going on. These things know. And
Yeah.
that's the reason why they're not coming down and making contact with us is because of the history. What does the history say? History says mankind needed these things to survive. Right? We don't need them to survive yet. Right.
Right.
So they're monitoring, they're watching, they're waiting. Right. All right. Nobody knows the day when it's going to happen, not even these things, but they know it's getting closer for this other world to come into play. And that's what they're waiting on. So they're waiting for this world to end, for the new world to begin. And that's when we're going to have this type of contact. And, by then, we're talking, the world's different, and probably no food, no water, radiation in the skies. The one's going to come down. He's going to anthropomorph into a man. It's just my idea. This is what I think is going to happen from all the research that I've done. Is he's going to anthropomorph into a man. He's going to land on this rock. He's going to say, I'm the one you guys have been waiting for. I'm your savior, right? Worship me. I'm going to clean up the water. I can do these miracles. You've been seeing my angels all these years, flying around, coming and going from these energy places here on this earth. Now I'm the one that you've been waiting for. I'm here to help you, you know. But actually, it's the false one, right? And
Right.
once again, it's misleading the people, just like what they did to the Holocaust. They misled them thinking that they were gods, right?
Hmm.
But that led to their downfall. And so this is the history of these things. This is the reason why they will never come out and tell us what's going on. But when you do your own research into this, like I have done, and understand everything, the pieces work. We have the pieces fit together. The puzzle is complete. You
Hmm.
know. So to understand our future, we must understand our past. The past is talking something completely what
Yeah. A
the
reset.
archaeologist,
Yeah.
yeah, is
No, a
not
reset.
talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us, Jeff, in closing, we'll get you out there so you can monitor things for us, and keep me abreast of what you find. So could you tell us, Jeff Woolwine, where can we find the information on you and your book?
So you can find me on Amazon. Just search my name, Jeff Woolwine, on Amazon. There, my books come up. I have 3 books out now, and then you can find all my books. You can find me mostly on Facebook. Contact me on Facebook, Jeff Woolwine, Petroglyphs in the Sky. And then my YouTube channel, the Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky. Make sure it says Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky, all one word. And you can find all the sightings there. And make sure you pick up my book because it's really fascinating stuff. It's a lot of credible research in there, and it's not meant for me. It's meant for others to want to find these things and know what to look for and how to see them. And I explain all of that. And we're 20 years ahead of others. This is the reason why when I first discovered all of this, ancient aliens, Pat Usgard, he's telling me, dude, public isn't ready for this. This is some bizarre stuff. And then we're here, and now some people are seeing these, and they're still calling them balloons. So we're
Hmm.
still not up to that point yet, you know. But and this is the reason why, from there, right? When my episode aired in 2007 on the History Channel, Arizona Lights, that inspired Ancient Aliens, right? And that canceled out UFO Hunter Show. That's what happened to the UFO Hunter Show. Was basically of the Ancient Aliens taking over,
Oh,
and so there's a big history to all of this, and the UFOs is the main circle, is the main point here, and that's what it's all about. And our history of these things isn't a very good one. So we need to second guess what we're being told here and really start believing what others are telling us and look into this ourselves and ask history what is telling us. Look at the mountains because the mountains are there, dude. They're like
yeah.
sacred scrolls, right? With all the information that we need. All right. You want to know about UFOs? Go to the mountains.
Yeah, and history is not what we think it is.
Right.
You've been listening to The Strange Reality, and Jeff Woolwine, my guest here, and I enjoyed the conversation. and you have some theories and things, and we're not theories, actual boots on the ground. Sorry, we can't use theories on certain things when you have the research to back it. Jeff Woolwine, thank you for being on the show, and I want to say good night to everybody. And Jeff, you want to say good night to people? Say bye bye from beautiful Arizona, I must
Yeah,
say. Yeah,
yeah. Thank you so much for having me, and
you're welcome,
I
buddy.
really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, buddy. Good night, everybody.